Okay, so news broke last week that part of the women's roster in WWE were unhappy with the way that they're being booked recently on television. Would there be any benefit at all to an all-women's television show, or how would you keep the roster motivated?
Well, it's two different questions. I'll break them down separately. So number one, would there be a bit? I don't know if the public interest is enough for an all women's wrestling show. I would be interested. I think you would be interested, and I think there's a certain audience that would, but I don't know what the viewership is on a show that's entirely made up of women's wrestling.
I actually would not be interested in all women's wrestling. No.
Really?
No.
I mean, not even if it was just a part of the bigger company.
No.
Really?
No.
That's interesting.
I like the women's wrestling in spurts. And there's only certain ones that I like. I don't know if they just haven't developed enough characters for me to be that interested in them. But I don't know if they could carry a complete show on their own, in my opinion.
See, I disagree. I think they could. I mean, let's go. If you're an hour, that's 3-4 matches? I think you've got enough. Because my bigger concern for WWE is not necessarily they need their own show. Mm-hmm. I think the WWE roster, I went on WWE.com, started looking at it. It's so big. And this is AEW's problem too. Yeah. This is all professional wrestling companies. They start to hoard wrestlers. It almost feels like they just start hiring people to hire people. I wrote down some numbers here that were real interesting, right? In WWE alone, because that's what I talk about, WWE alone, there's essentially 5 primetime hours of pro wrestling. You get 2.5-ish, depending on the commercials on Monday Night Raw. You get about 1.5 with SmackDown. And then you get whatever main event is, which I still don't know where, I'm not fully sold on who's watching main event, but it's there, and I will lump it into the fact that those are your primetime main roster opportunities to be seen on television as a WWE wrestler. Now, if you go to WWE.com and you look at the roster section, the best I could tell, there's about 50 wrestlers on Monday Night Raw.
Is there really?
There's 50 wrestlers on Monday Night Raw, and there's 40 wrestlers on SmackDown. That's 90 wrestlers that need to fit into 300 minutes a week. So you're definitely going to have somebody who's upset.
Oh,
somebody who doesn't feel like they're getting the time. On Monday Night Raw, there's 12 women.
Okay.
On SmackDown, there's 10 women. So there's about 22 women, and that was not counting Naomi and Sasha Banks, who we don't know for sure what's going on with either one of them. But at best, this is being generous. On Monday Night Raw, women get 3 matches. That's generous, right?
Yeah.
It's usually
two
matches and maybe a backstage segment, right? Mm-hmm. But 3 matches, right? And then on SmackDown, 2 at best. Okay, so that's 5 matches a week.
Yeah. For
the women. And let's say they get 5 minutes each in those matches. That's generous. That's 25 minutes of wrestling a week for 22 people.
Yeah.
For 22 wrestlers and 2 titles. 22 wrestlers, 2 titles, because we're not using the tag team titles right now. I even did math, and on average, there's only 12 wrestlers altogether featured on an episode of SmackDown.
Okay.
Because there's 6 matches.
Yes.
And maybe a few in backstage.
So fantasy book me though. What would a full hour of women's wrestling look like then?
What do you mean? Like
what would be interesting to you? Because honestly, in the women's division, the only things that really interest me right now is Becky Lynch, Bianca Belair.
But 1 hour.
Dana Brooke, I don't even really
1 hour
pay
is
attention
4
to
matches,
her.
okay? Give me Shotzi. Give me Raquel Rodriguez. Give me Ronda Rousey. Give me Natalya. Give me Alexa Bliss. Give me Becky Lynch. Give me Bianca Belair. Give me Asuka. That's 8 people.
Right. I mean, I guess you're right, because they
that's not
don't
counting
utilize
people
them enough. So then maybe that's why I feel like it couldn't happen.
And that doesn't even utilize people like Xia Li, who probably is very talented. We just don't get to see her. Mm-hmm. Shayna Baszler, who could be a tremendous bad guy. They just don't put her on TV enough.
That's true.
There's enough talent there. You've got Charlotte probably coming back soon. You've got Bayley probably coming back soon. You're talking about those Becky, Charlotte.
I retract my
right?
answer.
I mean, really though, when you I don't think it's necessary.
Yeah.
I think they just need to feature them more and probably need to trim the fat on the men's side of the roster.
Well, I think sometimes there's some matches that are just way too long that don't need to be.
Yeah, especially for television.
Yeah.
Like those matches need to be reserved for premium live events. That's where the meat, like, I don't expect a lot of wrestling on television. That is all supposed to be building up to get me excited for, like, we'll get to this in a little bit, but I'm going to kind of double down on this. It's like the Street Profits and the Usos. Yeah, I'm excited for SummerSlam to see them wrestle again, but I also feel like we've watched them wrestle every week for the last 4 or 5 weeks. Wrestle too, not just interact with each other, but have actual wrestling matches against each other. And so that feels like a lot. Also, like I still can't wrap my head around having a vacant women's tag team title when you have this many.
That I just rolled off. I'll agree with you on that one.
I just rolled off a list of names capable. Yeah. And I also can't wrap my head around not having a kind of mid-card women's title. I don't get it. Like, they're not, your Beckys, your Baileys, your Charlottes. Those people, Bianca Belair, they are main event. They can hold those big belts. But someone like Liv Morgan, who I've been critical of Liv Morgan, but honestly, the only way for Liv Morgan to learn is put the fucking title on her and let her learn. You either put up or shut up. There's not a title in WWE for women where you go, we could test this and it's not going to ruin them. The spotlight doesn't immediately, when you put the spotlight on Liv, people like me start going, all right, she can't keep cutting that same promo. She's got to do something different. If it's a mid-card title, an intercontinental women's champion of some sorts, there's a lot more. I have a lot more leadway for Gunther. I have a lot more leadway for who's United States? Bobby Lashley. Even Bobby Lashley. Look, that's a prime example. Bobby's a guy, he is, to me, on the cusp of being a mainstay in the main event, but he's got to just polish up a little bit. So the United States title is perfect for him.
And I think that he has improved a little bit on his mic skills. Honestly,
yes. And the more opportunities he gets, but when you do it as a United States champion, we're more forgiving. When you're the WWE champion and your flaws start to show, people are way more critical of that.
Yes.
All right. What else you got for me?
Okay. So